Doom vivamus vivamus Epicureans. This is the BCE Comics Pod one-shot edition. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr Shelf. How's it going, Nick?
I'm doing well, particularly since we are participating in Kurtis Findlay's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club, and we're about to finish up yet another epic. All right, today is going to be our thoughts on, today's issue, which is Nightcrawler number 4, The Wizard of Oops. And Joseph Rubinstein joins Dave Cockrum on finishes for this one. All right, so while our principal players have been captured by the shark wizard Chagrin, the singular Bamf finds the girl Bamfs and, of course, lets them loose. The ensuing chaos allows Nightcrawler and the others to get free, but Kitty, back in the 616 universe, also manages to pop herself into this world, grab a hold of Lockheed, just before Ileana then pops her back out. The defeat of the wizard also coincides with Nightcrawler dimensionally hopping 2 more times before he comes back to the world he encountered in Bizarre Tales number 27, and here he learns he still has some residual dark matter in him, and that his dimensional hopping is partly his own fault. So at this juncture, all Nightcrawler has to do is jump back home. They even make the Wizard of Oz reference of saying there's no place like home, and he does so. The end. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
So, first of all,
okay,
couple thoughts on this.
I don't know why you set me off with that, but I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
You didn't need any of this computer nonsense if you're going to lay out that he has this residual energy in him. All you had to do was set up his bamfing powers that they were on the fritz, and have him start ending up in places that he doesn't intend. So now you don't have to have Kitty pulling him out. You don't need the Kitty Ileana, subplot here, which makes no sense. All you needed to do was have it set up that he starts to teleport and he ends up in this other dimension. And then, his powers are negated, so he can't teleport the whole issue. He defeats the shark wizard guy, whatever. And then he can teleport again, but he can't get home. He teleports to a different dimension. Now here's your framing device that his teleportation's on the fritz. It sets up a mystery that means a little bit more to him. And then you end the issue just as you end it here with the explanation from the proto mojo or whatever the heck we're dealing with here. Because that's the other thing that would have made a lot more sense with all this. I know the mojo is a little ways off. Maybe even in the next epic, I forget, but it's not that far in the future, but is in the future still. And all of this would have made more sense that these are other dimensions, but they're they're almost set up specifically because they're watching our dimension, right? So that's where all the familiarity comes from and things like that. So that was annoying because I'm you have a plot device that makes more sense. What is this idiocy that we're dealing with of the computers and we just happen to be in a Kitty story dimension randomly and all that stuff. So anyway, so that was driving me nuts. The other thing was the little gag at the end that kind of bothered me a little bit. Not a ton, but on the last page they make a joke of hey, Kitty Kitty and Nightcrawler or Kitty and Ileana are saying something to the effect of hey, it would have been funny to be there when you got your clothes got teleported back, and he's you're too young for that, and he's well, you should see the stack of Playgirls that she's got. And it's wait, what? What is going on? Who's buying the 14-year-old girl who, by the way, is canonically still 7 Playgirls? Not only were you not allowed to have Playgirls or Playboys under the age of 18, but there's no parental figure here that she could be stealing them from. Granted, in the 80s you might find things like that in the woods, but you're not finding a Playgirl in the woods. And by the way, she's, well, at least to us, she's 7. She's not even 15.
What?
Now, granted, time moved differently in the demon dimension, so she's probably she lived 14 years or 15 years or whatever it is. But I don't know, like the fact that like they, and I know it's a throwaway line, but we're gonna get into some issues soon where Art Adams is gonna have some amazing art, but is also gonna have her and these people in bikinis and things like that, and it's like they're a little young for this stuff, still. But anyway, so
I
that's my
might add,
little
though, we've already seen
yeah. Go.
Liliana and Kitty goon over Tom Selleck, right? So these two having
Well,
their...
but that's fine. Like you're allowed to like crush on somebody, but like Playgirls are nudie
Sure,
magazines.
yeah.
Like like these are, you know, I don't know.
She's
Like
just
it's just
reading
so
them for the
nonchalantly
articles.
thrown out there, I guess is my problem with it, right?
Sure.
Like I'm not so idiot. I'm not such an idiot that like a 15-year-old boy and therefore a 15-year-old girl wouldn't like get their hands on something like this somehow. But like Cockrum's making it like his joke here is that she's got like a whole pile of them or something. Like it's just silly. Like I don't know. I don't. I'd have to go back and read the Bizarre Fantasy, Bizarre Adventures issue, to remind myself of this like granny character or whatever. But I was just very happy to say like we're done with this and let's move on. But I don't know what the character development here is. Like this is all just a silly, fun adventure. Fun is your mileage may vary. Wasn't that much fun for me. With decent art, I didn't notice any sort of differences with the finishes on this issue. Although if I looked at it closely enough, maybe I would. But it was basically consistent Cockrum art throughout the whole thing, and but just was completely not my cup of tea. What did you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's no real character development. I think the point, and I've neglected to say this in previous episodes because the point was laid out very much in issue number 1 of why does Nightcrawler train so much when he can just use his teleportation? Why does he have to be acrobatic? And this throws him in a situation where he can't use his teleportation because of magic and so forth. And that's what it has been kind of exploring, I guess, but it doesn't really feel like it's been exploring it that much. It's just been a thing that's been in the background. And the silliness definitely ramps up in this issue, which I can appreciate that. I enjoy a silly issue every now and then. And of course, as we know, I'm a sucker for dinosaurs, so seeing a dinosaur version of Yosemite Sam, I thought was hilarious. I didn't say it was good. I said it was hilarious. It's completely ridiculous, and it certainly solidifies the whole idea that this is just a cartoon, is what we're looking at here. I thought Nightcrawler's...
What other mammals is this thing coming across, by the way?
Yeah.
That he not only has a name for them, but he has the scientific name for what they are and can identify a mammal versus something else.
Oh, well, and he speaks English. I mean, come on. We have to... we're putting aside our beliefs in reality here, right? And to that point, how small a T-Rex's limbs are. How is he going to reach 6 shooters in a belt next to his hip? And it's the 80s. They still have him as an upright T-Rex instead of, the more sleek kind of even out one, but whatever. It's fine. It's silly. It's stupid. It's interesting that just by being a mammal, that makes him somehow a criminal. So we're back to that prejudice, bigoted beliefs, even in this dinosaur world.
One of my best friends is also named Steve, and we call him T-Rex, and that's because 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I forget now how long ago it was. We were sitting there talking to him, and we pissed him off, and he got all angry, like unnecessarily angry about something. And he's like, "Oh, he's so angry. He's like an angry T-Rex." And then he got even more mad about that. And we're like, "Oh, well, now that's just your name from now on." And it has been his name from that point forward. And I love him to death. So
has he at least embraced it?
Yeah. I mean, it's his name. Like he embraces it now, but like at the time, it was like he got all mad that we were calling him a T-Rex because he was trying to be responsible and do work, and we were just goofing off or whatever we were doing. We were at work at the time, and So anyway, so he's embraced it, but he's still T-Rex to this day. And I felt like if we spent that much time looking at a T-Rex panel and I didn't at least mention him, then I'd be not doing my duty there. So
yep, as boys do, right? That's awesome. Let's see. Oh, this panel. I kind of like this one that Nightcrawler's making reference to the distinguished competition, right, on how to get home, but instead he tries to say his name backwards. I don't know. I don't know if I could say that. Rowark Thgin.
Well, I guess they don't have Mixelplix backwards copyrighted because he says Mixelplix.
Yeah, it's just right there.
I don't know if that's the exact spelling, but I'd have to look it up.
I have no clue because I don't know enough about DC and that stuff. So anyway, there's silly stuff. There's silly moments in here that I really enjoyed. But again, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, we're retreading old ideas. And at the same time, this is kind of weird and inventive, and so I do appreciate that. But I'm done. I don't need to read any more. Again, as I said before, I don't know how you end up being both fun and boring at the same time, but this seems to have done it. I only just noticed this little creature right here. Thank you, Cockrum. I love your designs. Look at that guy. Little parrot, squirrel, skunk thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe not parrot. That's more a cockatoo, right?
Yeah, or toucan or something, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's it, toucan. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And then that creature at the bottom looks like one of the Shi'ar ships. You don't have to go back, but the thing with the wide eyes.
Yeah. So. Although I think they made mention that was actually in Bizarre Adventures 27, that they saw that again. I think I remember seeing that at some point. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Stojr, we've been talking about the covers potentially being homages to movie posters, and I don't know if we're right or wrong about that. For this one, number 4, if that is an homage, I don't know to what. I couldn't figure that out.
I did some Googling. The closest that I could figure out that it might be is Psycho, with the face in the background. Mm-hmm. I started to look and see if there was something with the rope and it being cut. I kind of... at first, I thought it was the Babysitter's Club.
No, Adventures in Babysitting.
Well, yeah, and then I realized there wasn't a movie in the 80s of the Babysitter's Club, and it was Adventures in Babysitting, which I've never seen, but I could remember the poster. I always meant to see it as a kid. It had Elizabeth Shue in it, but that came out like a year or two after this, so I don't think that has anything to do with it. And I think we established before that if it is the movie poster, they're most likely the background elements and not the people on ropes, which is what is the through line for all 4 of these. So, so who knows? It seems a little bit like the Psycho poster, but I'm not even really sure about that.
Yeah, and I may be off base with this assumption of mine that this is movie poster homages. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I have no idea. A theory of mine, though. I do have a no prize for this one, Stojr.
Okay.
All right, the award for greatest unintentional double entendre goes to the Bamf when he rescues the girl Bamfs. Stojr, I think I told you once before I lived in England for a while, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, in England, they have a slang word that we don't really use here in the United States, which I think made an appearance here, again, unintentionally. So when this Bamf enters the room where all the girls are kept, and he mentions his great-aunt Fanny's sauerkraut cupcakes. I'm sorry, I lost it. Not only... Yep, I don't need to say any more. If you know that word from the UK slang, and then add sauerkraut cupcakes there, boy, is that... I don't know why that tickles me. That tickles me.
All right, that one I'm gonna have to look up. I'm not familiar with that. So.
Oh, well, I don't know if that'll be a joy or if it'll be incredibly disappointing in me. I don't know. All right, since we're at the end of the volume, let's talk about bonus material. There's surprisingly little bonus material in this one. I don't know if maybe that's different for the 2024 version, but Stojr, both you and I are on the, I think, 2014 is when this one, the first printing came out?
Yeah, I would assume not. I don't think that they add content to things, or if they did, I think we would have heard about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I am interested if they have updated scans and things like that. We know that they've changed the cover logo on some of the new printings, but I have not heard that there's like whole new content.
Yeah. So for the bonus, very little. We get 2 different Marvel Age articles. One is on the Nightcrawler miniseries. The other is on the X-Men and Alpha Flight miniseries. The Nightcrawler one is essentially a sales pitch. It doesn't really add anything new to it, which I think a lot of these Marvel Age articles are. They're giving you a taste of what's to come. So in the moment, in the time, oh great, you get a preview of what this new comic coming out is, and that's fun. But after the fact, it doesn't really matter. The X-Men and Alpha Flight article, I think, does give us some better background, though. It mentions that John Byrne was originally tapped to draw that miniseries, but the project got delayed, and so Byrne became too busy, and that's how Paul Smith ended up on the project. So that at least adds some good background information, and I appreciate that. Other than those two things, we get a house ad for the Nightcrawler miniseries, and that's it. That's all we have. So, which surprises me. Normally we get some original art, and the fact that there's just none in here, I think, surprises me a little bit. But that's fine.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our rating here, Stojr. This volume, volume 12, The Gift, is a bit of a slog, I thought. Really, the only standout issues were the X-Men and Alpha Flight miniseries, and then issue number 194, where the X-Men and Juggernaut take on Nimrod, at least that in my opinion. There are several boring issues, but not anything I find to be bad or offensive. Not reading the New Mutants in conjunction with this does make some of the stories a bit confusing. So from a collected edition standpoint, it's missing some of the story, right? And so I think that hurts the volume. Not necessarily the stories, but it hurts the volume because of that. And that's definitely a problem for the start of the book. And then the second half of the book seems to rely too much on going back to the well of past stories and try to recapture some old successes. So for my rating on this, I'm giving it a 7. It's not offensive, it's not bad, but it's not good either. So that's where I land there. Stojr, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that for me, the biggest summary of how I feel about this is how I felt about the Cool and Goth. Like, I feel like I should like this more, but I just don't. So on the book itself, I have we talked about like one of the first printings or the first printing, I should say. So it's got the sort of more matted paper. My copy's a little beat up. It was a used copy. It's got a remainder mark. It's got scuffs all over it. Some of the art doesn't feel as crisp as I would have liked, or as we got in Life, Death, or in God Loves, Man Kills, where those issues really got a lot of attention and love over the years, and maybe that's the artist, because I'm sure. I think the Masterworks did get past this era, so these are probably the Masterworks scans. But I'd have to go back and check and see, when did the Masterworks of this era come out versus this Epic collection to see if this came out before or after. But when I look at the story content here, there's just a lot of just that's okay. There's not really anything memorable. The Life Death 2 was just fine. The Nimrod stuff hasn't really taken off. We've had one sort of battle. The cover with Doctor Doom isn't really even Doctor Doom. Heck, it isn't even in most of these X-Men. You got Storm flying on the cover, and that's not her. That's a robot. The Cool and Goth stuff, I've talked about that. I've sort of wish I liked more, but I feel like it was just too condensed. The Nightcrawler stuff was a missed opportunity. I feel like Nightcrawler's a great character, and we could have had a really interesting miniseries there with him, but instead we get this sort of pointless, just kind of fun adventure that's completely silly. That frankly, you could have just done it in an annual. Make that, just condense that down to one issue and sort of shove it into an annual. But I think they're experimenting with giving everybody their own little mini series during this time. Some of the parts that I liked are the parts that are just the regular X-Men issues. So whether that's the anniversary issue of 193 or the stuff on the college campus and starting to kind of coalesce the team. And there's just not enough of that as you go through here. And we talked a lot about the X-Men Alpha Flight issues, and I thought those were fine. And that's really the rating for this whole thing. I feel like this is kind of just fine. It's average, and I'm going to end up at a 6.0 for this.
Okay. So we're continuing with our trend of I'm a little bit higher than you, Stojr, with many things, but that's okay. That's why we average them out. So with your 6.0, my 7.0 combined, we're going to give this a 6.5, and I'm okay with that. It's Although it does make me wonder, didn't we end up giving Morbius a 6.5? I think this is better
Yeah,
than
I have a feeling
Morbius.
I'm gonna one of these days we'll take a pause and we'll look at, maybe do a segment in one of our fanfares and look at where our ratings are.
That's a good
And
idea.
adjust, like maybe do like a bell curve adjustment type of thing, right? Where we like, now that we've rated more, what would you adjust your ratings against the ones that we've already rated? And I have a feeling Morbius is going to drop down in that list.
That is a fair point. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for Volume 12, The Gift. Next time is going to be Volume 13. I forgot to bring my copy next to me. It's Wounded Wolf, correct?
It is Wounded Wolf. So I have some higher hopes for this one, although we're going to have similar complaints, and we're probably going to have to stop complaining about having to read more. I think like that's just going to be getting worse from this point forward. But there's still going to be some Secret Wars 2 stuff mixed in. This will end right before Mutant Massacre. So we'll have that. But there's a little bit of a New Mutants crossover in here, and that's about it. You get 2 annuals and about 11 issues of Uncanny, with some specials and things like that. So there's no like sort of divergence with like some other mini series or anything like that.
Yep. All right. Well, that's what's coming ahead here. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy us, again, follow us on YouTube, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. We're going to read, rate, and review a full big collected edition comic once a month, plus these daily one-shots. Thank you again. We'll catch you next time. Oh, where's the outro? There it is.